This YouTube video is brought to you by sponsorship on YouTube videos. Like all films of its nature, it was a long road to get Logan made. And along the way, certain scenes and concepts didn't make the final cut. So what I want to get into today is how Logan came to be off the back of the mixed bag that is the X-Men universe, and then to get into some exclusive, just so exclusive, it's so red hot, you wouldn't believe it, concepts from characters and scenes that didn't make the cut from a few people who were directly responsible for so much of what we saw in Logan. Spoilers for all that, and if you want to skip ahead to it, here's the timestamp. It's totally your call. Also, as always, there'll be a Loot Crate giveaway at the end. Just big time. It's definitely happening. Okay, so there was no concrete plan after the success of Wolverine in 2013 for director James Mangold and Hugh Jackman to create a follow-up film. The issue for them was they didn't just want to make the same movie again and wanted to take their time to develop the project. Mangold did mention at the time that he had a good angle on it, but he wasn't quite ready to talk about it, and Jackman hadn't even signed on at this point. You see, since X2, X-Men 2, X-Men United 2 in 2003, he's been working movie to movie as opposed to signing multi-picture deals. He only wanted to make the movie on one condition, that there was a good chance it was better than the last. Or what's the point? Which is fair, because how often is the third movie in a trilogy the best one? I mean, sure, it has happened before, but it's fairly rare. Revenge of the Sith is the best Star Wars prequel, but that's probably because a man everybody found intolerable caught fire. There was the initial idea to shoot this movie back to back with X-Men Apocalypse, but that didn't end up happening, probably because the story was still being fleshed out. Both Jackman and Mangold ended up signing on in 2015, and the March release date of 2017 was set.
Default processes, and one of them is that these movies are shot on stages a lot, with a lot of green screen.
The gas station.
And we didn't do that. We took our
no,
characters out.
bad girl,
and I think it makes a
There's some
difference.
really good.
Then we got a series of rumors that the movie would focus on the Wolverine Professor X dynamic, and the whole thing would be an adaptation of Old Man Logan. That all obviously turned out to be true, but seeing as Fox owns about 6% of the characters in that book, that's not an exact number, I didn't do the math, a faithful interpretation of that would prove difficult. But the book's author, Mark Millar, pointed out in September of 2015 that the story can work as a road trip film, with the X-Men characters being substituted for those owned by Marvel. For example, Hulk could be replaced by Blob as one of the main villains, and Blind Hawkeye could be replaced by Cyclops having his ruby quartz visor broken and he has to keep his eyes closed the entire time. But if Hugh Jackman is to be believed, which he absolutely is, he is the most trustworthy man in the cesspit of narcissism and ego that Hollywood has built upon, then he came up with a few core ideas 2 years ago in the dead of night. No doubt awoken from his slumber, consisting of thinking about why he wasn't cast as Gaston in the Beauty and the Beast movie, and that time he pissed his pants playing the character on stage.
If I sing this note, I'm peeing my pants.
Anyways, that's not the relevant clip. This is what I was talking about.
2 years ago, 4 o'clock in the morning, I had Bolt Upright, and I kept thinking of The Wrestler and Unforgiven. I thought how cool it would be to see Wolverine, but actually getting to see what happens afterwards. What is it like for the soldier who returns home and tries to find peace with his life?
Like he goes on to say though, although he came up with that idea, it took James Mangold to really bring the project to life. It is possible that some of his thoughts stemmed from fan involvement, as he actually reached out on Twitter for suggestions of things that people might want to see. As for the R rating it ended up receiving, Mangold and Jackman pushed for this from the very get-go in order to give audiences the kind of action sequences we hadn't seen before in an X-Men movie. Mangold also mentioned to the Hollywood Reporter that he wasn't going to make the film and then have it decided later what the rating would be, because marketing would almost certainly push it to a PG-13. But in order to convince the studio of this, a smaller budget of around $97 million was decided upon, and Hugh Jackman took a significant pay cut. It's been suggested that the reason that Fox were okay with this was because of the success of Deadpool, insofar as it's easily the highest grossing film in the X-Men universe, despite having a significantly lower budget than all of them. They must have thought, hey, there might be something in this allowing creators to craft the best movie possible with minimal studio interference. I don't know that for a fact, but I do know that the shittier X-Men films are the ones that have been screwed with the most. Okay, so as mentioned, I contacted a few people who worked on Logan. The first of which being Shay Schatz, who previously was involved in projects such as The Jungle Book, Ghostbusters, and a couple of games in the Halo series. His work began in August of 2015 when he was brought on board by production designer Francois Udoy, who was said to have done an amazing job of simplifying and interpreting the director's vision. vision, though at the same time there was some freedom associated with the work to fully harness a concept artist's effectiveness. An example of this can be seen in a couple of Shay's images. This one depicts Wolverine with a cowboy hat, the idea here being that he was challenging the conventional ways he was accustomed to seeing the character. There were other variations on Logan he completed, but was unable to share due to the possibility that they might be used in another film. I did, however, get hold of some variations through another avenue, which I'll touch on in a bit. I asked about any scenes that were planned, but then later removed, and Shay mentioned a sequence that was scrapped involving a flashback of a younger Logan on a mission, but he couldn't elaborate beyond that. He said he was sorry to see it go, however it was the right choice as both the film and story benefited. Some of the pieces he posted on his Twitter account that we didn't see in the film included a villain's residence that appeared in flashback, an alternate design of Professor X's quarters, which is a little more Cerebro-like and has some more futuristic touches than what's seen in the final movie, and an updated version of the Alkali Lake facility that we have seen in previous movies. I was also lucky enough to get some additional information from Aaron Sims and Stefan Reichstad from Aaron Sims Creative, who've worked on such projects as Wonder Woman, The Wolverine, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and Stranger Things. They also began their time with the project in 2015, where they began to design the look for Professor X, Logan, Caliban, and Laura in relation to costume and features and the like. Laura went through some significant changes, including a slightly older version, though it was said that decision didn't come from higher ups, it was just something that they were messing around with. These images also, they're not based on anyone in particular. The idea was just to depict her closer to her teens, which differs from the version that we ended up seeing. As far as Caliban was concerned, these were done before Stephen Merchant came on board, and they're not based off anyone in particular. I asked about whether they used the actor who portrayed him in X-Men Apocalypse as reference, but they said this wasn't the case. Which makes sense, seeing as it was just revealed that Fox didn't know Caliban was being used in two separate movies back to back. In terms of Logan himself, the general direction was older, more battle-weary, and not being able to heal as quickly, resulting in some extra scars. These two images in particular are heavily influenced by a Clint Eastwood kind of old-school Western feel, which funnily enough, Hugh Jackman based his original performance off. Regarding the exclusion of the yellow costume, I had to ask whether that was ever being considered, even though I was fairly certain that it wasn't, and they said no, it was never the case. Wolverine's death, though, would have been something more akin to the comics at one point, though they couldn't elaborate on what that was in particular, in case it's used in a different movie down the line. They also mentioned that there are a number of sequences from much earlier drafts of the script that they couldn't get into, for the same reasons concerning the alternate death of Wolverine. And also they didn't want to put anything out there which conflicts with the studio's vision. But there was mention of some variations on the clone of Wolverine, X-24. They were, however, kind enough to send this over, a scrapped chase action sequence through a cornfield after what takes place at the farmhouse. Also, they did emphasize that while they designed on the film, they're just a vendor and to take all this information with a grain of salt. There are a few additional scenes that I can't show you anything of, but I can weave a rich tapestry in your mind using all my best words. Mangold has mentioned how there was an additional conversation during the dinner table sequence, one of the few moments of levity in the film, where Logan is asked if he's married, and Charles says he was, but he killed her. What follows on from then is Charles waxing poetic about Jean Grey, but it was thought it was a bit of a lead brick in one of the only moments of the film that's a bit of a breather. Still, that definitely sounds like something worth seeing, even though it would add to the confusion of the X-Men timeline. And by that I mean, if this movie is in the original timeline, then sure, he kills her, but that's also the timeline with the murderous future robots. So if it's in the new timeline, I guess it means he killed her, but around 6 years prior? I mean, like I said in previous videos, who cares? It's a good movie, and being stuck in a particular continuity would only have hamstrung the story. There was also a very early idea to include Sabretooth, insofar as, when they're on the run, they'd visit a gambling town and ask for help. Liev Schreiber confirmed that he was interested, and that they did talk about him coming back, but for whatever reason, it never came to be. I think it would have been interesting to see a version of Sabretooth that didn't age as poorly as Wolverine, due to not being slowly poisoned by adamantium, even though again, if they went with the Schreiber version, it conflicts with what we saw in the first X-Men movie. I mean, still, timelines and whatever, who cares? Finally, during the film it was revealed that whilst suffering from a seizure, Professor X accidentally killed all of the X-Men, except for Logan, due to his healing abilities. Screenwriter Michael Green mentioned that he wrote versions of this flashback sequence that were never filmed. Unfortunately, there's nothing more specific about this that we currently know of, but James Mangold has said that his decision to cut it was made to make the movie less about information and more about character. Green also mentioned that one day he'd love to see a beautifully drawn comic where we'd get to see this. And I've actually taken the liberty of doing this myself. Behold. That'll just about do it though. Big thanks again to both Shay Schatz and also Chase from Aaron Sims Creative for being so accommodating despite me bothering them with various questions regarding Logan when they no doubt have infinitely better things to do. But you can and absolutely should check out their retrospective works at these particular links, which are also in the description, as I'd imagine as time goes on, they may be able to reveal more information about the project, plus all the upcoming stuff they're currently working on. And here's the winner of last week's Loot Crate. If you are this person, just private message me these details and I'll get one sent your way. And if you want to win next week's box, you can leave any comment below and you'll be in the running. Maybe you can mention something left out of Logan that you would have liked to have seen make the cut. Also, if you're keen, I've got a podcast called The Weekly Planet, where every Monday we talk movies and comics and TV shows. That's linked there and below, along with a couple of other videos, which you may or may not care about. But thanks for watching this though. I appreciate it. Take care.